running a business is a tough and lonely journey. Welcome to the Executives on the Front Lines podcast, where business owners and C-suite executives like you will get real answers to your everyday business problems. I'm your host, Jeff Palacio, and together we will learn from senior leaders who have occupied every top box of a company's org chart for every size organization and who like to roll up their sleeves while checking their egos at the door. Welcome to the first episode of our podcast, Executives on the Front Lines, Real Answers to Everyday Business Problems. The guest today to lead off this great podcast series, because it's going to be great, is Baron Lukas, one of the principals of ExecHQ. Baron, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate starting this, and thanks for having me this morning. My name is Baron Lukas. I'm a consultant, strategic advisor, and an executive coach with ExecHQ. I've been with the firm on and off since 2019, and I mean on and off because my history is that I get pulled into a client's company and get talked into a W-2 full-time job for a while, and then leave again when I'm not needed. So I had about an 18-month hiatus where I was working full-time. Prior to any of that, I spent 16 years in various senior executive, business ownership, consulting, and board positions. And prior to that, the business career, I served 27 years in the Marine Corps as an officer and retired as a colonel in 2007.
And you, I believe you also had an altercation with Tom Cruise in 1986 with filming, but you signed an NDA and you can't reveal anything.
Exactly right. Absolutely. Okay. Can't do that.
Okay. Well, since we're on the fun part, I like to just lighten things up before we get into a deep dive on business challenges and your expertise in those. But what skill or talent do you have, Baron, that might surprise that people would be surprised to learn about?
Talent that I have is much of the talent, but it's a passion. I spent about 2 decades training working dogs competitively in a sport called Schutzhund. That's a German for protection dog. So I have a passion for German Shepherds, and I trained competitively, and I was a training director for a number of clubs back when I was younger and a little bit faster.
I love it. Yeah, I didn't even know that about you.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, the goal of the podcast is to really look at companies and the challenges and the initiatives they want to do and give them common sense solutions. Right. But what are you seeing, you and the other principals you work with at ExecHQ, what kind of business challenges, initiatives are you seeing out there?
I'm not sure we have that much time for a 20-minute podcast, but let me give you an overview, I think. I think there are a number of challenges that most clients face, whether they know it or not. And I'll give you just the laundry list from my perspective. What I do is I do planning and execution. I do executive coaching, corporate governance, setting up boards. I help companies get ready for a sale, so increasing the value of the company by looking at the multiple and fixing the things that are broke in the company. Those are all services. But the problems are, one, we are not taught how to plan correctly in most MBA schools. So I personally take a military planning methodology. I fairy dusted a number of concepts that I learned in the last 16 years in business. And now I've got a package that can teach a client how to plan and execute. And that's really critical because most of them do a yearly plan, put on the shelf, never use it again. Or they have a leadership issue, or they have a culture, core values issue where people are not aligned with the mission and the core values. A lot of companies need a strategic CFO to give them an assessment of where they are financially. A lot of, and our clientele is mostly lower middle market, so think startup to about 30 million in EBITDA. Most of them do not have experienced CFOs and could use an assessment. Almost every company has some sort of a problem that they don't even know they have. So most of us do a business assessment that covers everything from A to Z, literally governance to cybersecurity and everything between. So we can tell them, hey, look, you may think this is a problem, but here's really the challenge you have: succession planning, leadership, whatever it is. For ExecHQ, we are a different kind of a organization. We're all 1099s. We're not 25-year-old MBAs. We are seasoned 20 plus years in the C-suite executives that work alongside of our clients, do the work. We're literally on the front lines with our clients, fixing the problem, and then almost more importantly, teaching our clients how to do it themselves. So eventually we can extricate ourselves from the situation. That goes for almost any problem that you can see.
Yeah, so I mean, so maybe give some examples of how you've helped executives, business owners, companies in terms of what you've done and other principles at ExecHQ.
Certainly. One thing that I do, I want to think called ExecHQ MULTIPLE, which is a pre-transaction readiness and valuation enhancement program with a partner up in Vancouver, and then our founder and CEO Jim Hoggett is our strategic CFO. And we took a company last year that was not ready to be sold ever. It's just one of those entrepreneurial companies where it wasn't professionalized. The CEO had 8 jobs, 8 hats, couldn't go on vacation, and wanted to sell within 6 to 9 months, which was an impossibility. So we took 11 months. We employed 7 ExecHQ principals, 3 to run the program, and then the other 4 were inside the company filling C-suite roles. And what we did was we reformatted, realigned the financials along strategic lines of business. We provided a strategic planning and execution framework. We fixed the marketing, we fixed sales, we fixed cybersecurity. We organized and professionalized the company. So instead of being a 4 on the multiple, they had offers from 6 to 10 on the multiple in the initial offering. That's a great example of what we can do for a company. Mostly what I do besides that is I provide something called Chief of Staff as a Service. And think of it as a executive coach on steroids. So it's a senior position that is working directly for the CEO, and it's above the rest of the C-suite. So there's no competition, no politics. As the chief of staff, what I do is executive coaching for the entire C-suite, because frankly, I'm 64 and I've been around and I've seen some things, and most of the younger folks maybe don't have that breadth of experience. So everybody can use a coach. Planning and execution, certainly. And then when required, what makes ExecHQ so interesting to me is if I see a problem in the assessment that I do, let's say they need a CFO, I can bring in people that I trust. I've seen their work. I can trust them to do excellent work and bring in and fix whatever the issues are in the financials, cost reduction potential, profitability analysis. And so the company benefits across a scope of things that they probably didn't realize they had problems with. And on the other side, I've got a client currently, I can't name them for a number of reasons, but they're in a business of infrastructure development. And they went from a mom and pop shop, about $7-8 million of revenue. This year, they're closing north of 20, and they're part of a consortium that's about to do infrastructure work in Africa, the Caribbean, and Central America. I'm talking about billions of dollars worth of work from a tiny little company, and now they're part of a big consortium. And that transition came about with coaching, planning, execution, and having them see the big picture, professionalizing the company for growth.
Yeah, part of what you're talking about too is, and I believe you even used the word fractional executive. So why don't you explain what that concept is?
Absolutely. And I think most of the audience will have heard of fractional CFOs. That's somebody you bring in part-time for a short duration to do the CFO work. That's a very easy plug and play. So what we do is we bring in, now we can be a CEO for a while if that's required, or a COO. Those positions tend to be a little bit political. But CFO chief marketing officer, chief revenue officer, chief IT officer, chief human resource officer. Those kind of positions tend to be a little bit more plug and play, if you will. So we can go in and instead of a company spending $250,000, $300,000 a year, they spend a third maybe or half of that on a fractional, short-term, senior, experienced, can-do professional while they're looking for a permanent fill. And frankly, some of our principals, and I'm included, will go into those kind of positions and then all of a sudden find themselves with an offer and then leave ExecHQ for a while in a W-2. And some of them, like I did a couple years ago, come back to ExecHQ when that work is done. But it gives the capability for us to fill in a C-suite that is lacking in certain areas, because they either don't have the bandwidth, the resources financially, haven't found the right person. We can plug and play in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I love the concept because I think, most, especially startups, I mean, they wait too long to hire seasoned executives because they can't afford them, like you mentioned, Baron. And,
Right.
there's just so many, like the average age right now, we're recording this in December 2023, the average age of a baby boomer right now is 58 years old.
Yep.
10,000 people a day in the US turn 65. And I think there's a lot of great executives out there that want to leave corporate America, but they still want to add value to companies, and they have so much experience that it's a win-win for everybody. So I really love the
Absolutely.
concept.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most of us, and you and I have talked a lot. I'm a lifelong coach, teacher. I was a fighter pilot, so I taught people how to fly airplanes. I taught tactics. I taught at the postgraduate level. It's part of my DNA. So my pleasure in this work is being able to go and impart some of my life experience and some common sense approaches to planning and execution and help that company become better. I love seeing people mature and develop. And I think that's all of us in ExecHQ. There's 75 of us. It's global, Canada, United States, Mexico, some in Asia, some in Europe. And we have a number of service and industry groups that have specific expertise. So quite frankly, if I go into a client, and the beauty of ExecHQ, it isn't Baron selling Baron. No matter how talented or good looking I may be, the reality is it's tough to sell yourself, but it's not tough to sell a team. And to go into a company and say, you don't need me. What you need is Elza Malik, one of our chief marketing officers, or you need Jeff, because Jeff is a great chief revenue officer. And so a lot of times that's the fun part, is being able to find the right solution. We're not 25, 30-year-old MBAs, with people that have been there and done that and will work on that front line with the senior executives.
Yeah, and I think too. I mean, Jim Hokat is the founder, the CEO of ExecHQ. Started the company about 6 years ago, so it was probably on the leading edge of really kind of packaging the whole, CXO,
Absolutely.
C-suite of executives as a service type thing. But but now there's competitors, obviously. What makes ExecHQ different, Baron?
Well, I think the fact that we're not this standalone consulting company with a bunch of senior partners and then a herd of new MBAs I don't denigrate those companies, that they are extraordinarily talented people. They have some wonderful solutions, and a lot of larger companies use them. But our clientele needs real-time, real-world solutions, and then they may not have the ability just to stand by and get a playbook. We do the work for them. And it isn't like I'm going to go to my assistant. This is it. I'm a team of one until I bring in other principals to do the work. So when I do planning execution, I'm in there doing the planning with them, teaching them how to plan, making sure that they hold themselves accountable for the execution. We do the work and we teach how to do it. And that's a completely different way of doing things than most other consulting firms.
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen, so I think you and I met in June after I met Jim Hogab via Zoom, and
Right.
then he introduced me to you. And one of the first things you said to me is, Jim puts me first because if you're still interested in joining Exec HQ after meeting me, so, because you're an intimidating person, both physically and your accomplishments in your career. But what I love about it, and everybody has egos, but it reminds me of the Yankees in the late '90s, early 2000s. They really they had great talent, but they had great team chemistry, and they
Right.
checked their egos at the door, and they were blue collar. We're talking millions of dollars they get paid a year, but they were blue collar people in terms of mindset, bringing their lunch pail to work every day, and just grinding and do what it took to win. So I haven't met all 75 principals, but I will say people like yourself and John Rothbard, Doug Morse, and many of the others I've met. It's just great people with outstanding accomplishments and just smart, kind, and generous. So that's what resonated with me, and it's an honor to be working alongside of you and the others. Any other
Absolutely.
thoughts
Thank you.
on that you want to impart on the audience on how Exec HQ helps people, helps companies?
No, I don't think so. I think the secret to this podcast is going to be that this is the introduction, obviously, but from now on, twice a month, and then eventually once a week, we'll be here 15 to 20 minutes on all the podcast outlets, and we're here to solve a problem. So today's introduction. From now on, we're going to take a look at real world issues that we have seen or that the audience will send to us, and we'll provide an expert at whatever that challenge is and provide some real world examples of how they can be solved. And it's my hope, and I know it's your hope, that this will bring value to the viewing audience, not just the marketing pitch or the world according to Jeff and Barron, but it's a how do you fix things when you're alone in the corner office, if those things still exist, and you don't have somebody to lean on. Everybody needs somebody that they can talk to. And in this case, we won't just talk, we'll help you fix the problem.
Yeah, I love that. Baron, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to having you on a future episode so you can go ahead and take a deep dive in one of your topics that you're an expert in. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Executives on the Front Lines. If you are interested in learning more about today's guest, you can schedule a 15-minute call with them by scanning the QR code or using the link in the episode description. Please join me every 2 weeks to learn from another great leader sharing insight that can help you and your business.